This time around, we're going to look at Microsoft 365 admin and specifically the top 5 mistakes that admins make. And I know what you're going to say. I never make a mistake. Let's find out, shall we? Greetings, my fellow YouTubers. Welcome to the channel. I really appreciate you taking the time to drop by. Andy Malone, Microsoft MVP, as well as a Microsoft certified trainer. Now, first of all, just get this out of the way. Thank you so much to everyone who's gone ahead, clicked on that subscribe button and rang that bell, because now over a year, I've just reached 7,000 subscribers, and I really do appreciate it. And as I said before, I'm trying to build a great training and learning community here. Now, this week, I thought I'd take a look at Microsoft 365 and really try to check out the most common mistakes that administrators make. Now, as you can imagine, there's lots of them, but what I've done are kind of 5 most common things. And some of these actually are quite difficult to actually find if you don't know where to look. So I thought that would be actually quite useful for you as well. Now, if you've not subscribed to the channel, we love subscribers. So go ahead, click on that subscribe button, ring the bell, and you won't miss out on notifications of postings in the future. And as always, I love your comments, questions, and feedback, not just about this, but about all my videos. All right, so without any more jibber jabber, as they say, I think it's about time we got to some demos. For my number 5 option, what I'm going to come and do is I'm going to come in to SharePoint Online. And SharePoint Online, it's so important because it ties a lot of the functionality in Microsoft 365 together. And there's potentially a lot that can go wrong. Now, often I just want to show you that many of the features are actually hidden, and it can cause not only frustration, but it can cause errors as well. As an example, I'm going to come into active sites. And SharePoint, if you're familiar with SharePoint, there is a feature in SharePoint called subsites. So I'm going to come into the Aberdeen head office here. I'm going to come down into site contents, and you can see, although we have a tab for subsites, when I click on new, it's nowhere to be found. And in fact, it's because it's disabled. Now, what Microsoft are trying to do is subsites are designed to be classic. Almost think about it like Windows folders. So you've created a folder and then you can create subsites within that. And the problem with this is it's fixed, it's rigid. Okay, there's no flexibility about it. So what Microsoft came up with as a solution is something called hub sites. And hub sites is much more flexible. So here in the Aberdeen office, I can say I want to register this as a hub site. So I'm going to call this my Aberdeen hub. And again, you can specify who can associate with the hub. So I'm going to just associate with myself. And you can see that this is now the Aberdeen hub. Likewise, I might say, okay, let's go with the Aberdeen production site. And I can register this or associate this with an existing hub. So I can click on here and say, hey, I want to register this or select a hub to associate this with. Now, what are the benefits of this? Well, basically anything that's in a hub site, so the hub site, the menu, the color schemes, the layout, and including the search capabilities, it would allow me to basically share all of the settings with all of my associated sub-sites, if you will, that are contained within the hub. And more than that, it means that if I do have a site that, let's say, is associated with a hub site, I can just simply say, hey, I want to change the hub association. I want to change it from Aberdeen to global sales. And it's now moved. It detaches itself and it just moves. And it's so flexible, folks. And that's the benefits of modern hub sites. So classic subsites are fixed. Hub sites are dynamic. Now, if, however, you do want to switch on, and some of you may still want that, the functionality of having subsites, then what you need to do is it's buried away here. So if you go into settings, you can almost miss it. If you just scroll down a little bit further, check it out. Look, you need to go to the classic settings page. And I'm going to scroll down, right down here, and you can see one of the options that I have is subsite creation. And it's completely buried away. And you can see that by default, it's actually disabled. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch it on for all sites. So I'm going to click on OK. Now it does take a little bit of time to come through. So I'm just going to close this down and I'm going to open it back up again. So in here, I'm going to come into active sites and I'm going to come down to, let's say, what have we got? We've got Oslo purchasing here. So I've got the Oslo purchasing site. I'm going to open up this site. And as you can see, I don't have any managers in here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into site contents, and you can either get to site contents either by the menu option or by the little gear icon in the top right hand corner. And you can see that I've got subsites, and if I click on new, you see it hasn't come through yet. So what we'll do is I'll just refresh this page, and now you can see a subsite has appeared. So now I can go in, and you can see it's in the old classic SharePoint look. And I'm going to call this site, I will call this my managers. Okay. And in here, I'm going to just say managers. And you can choose now a template. So I can choose a Microsoft 365 or a Teams site. And you can see that this is not a Microsoft 365 group. So it's just a standard Teams site. The good thing about this, by the way, is you can upgrade it. Whereas this is a classic Teams site. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose that. I'm going to use the same permissions as above. Do I want to display the site in the menu? So yes, I'm going to go ahead and display that site. You can now see I have a subsite. So there you have it, subsites versus hub sites. For my number 4 option, what I want to do is take a look at the guest user access confusion, because there is an awful lot of confusion out there. First of all, what do we mean by a guest? Well, as we know, Azure Active Directory, or in this case Microsoft 365, which is the same thing, we have our corporate accounts in here. And this means that your users are in your directory and they're licensed. But we do have the capability to invite guests, as I've talked about many times before, but there is confusion with it. Now, another inconsistency which sometimes throws people is that sometimes you don't get the guest user option. And if that's the case, it's because you're on a Business Basic subscription. So Business Basic or the lower end plans or home users do not have the capabilities to add guest users in. Right. Now, the other thing that's a little bit annoying actually is when you click on add a guest user, you can't add a guest user here in 365. What it actually does is it takes you to the Azure Active Directory Admin Center. The other way to do it, of course, is by actually going into Azure Active Directory And if you come down into the Azure AD Blade, which is here, and come into users, you can see that you've got two options. So I can create a new Azure AD user, and I can also create a new guest user as well. Quick question that people ask me is who can create guest users? Well, actually, it depends on your collaboration settings, which I'll cover in a second. So I'm going to go ahead and invite a user here. So I'm going to invite myself, so Andy Malone, and I'm going to put my email address in. Please note, by the way, this is only a demo email address, so I don't think you can go off and emailing me. I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to say, hey, come and join the party. Okay, so I'm going to send a message. I'm going to invite that external user to come and collaborate with us. So I'm now going to click on send the invite. So that invite will go off and you can see, hey, yep, there it goes. That invitation has just arrived. So it's looking good. All right, now, what can you do with that guest account? Well, first of all, you've got to think about how much collaboration you want to allow this guest. Well, for that, we come back into the Azure AD Admin Center. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to the Azure AD Blade and I'm going to click on external identities. Now, this is something that I'm going to cover in much more depth in a future session. But for today, I just want to look at the external collaboration settings, because this can cause so many problems within an organization. So what we have here is you can see here that I've got guest access. So basically you can say guest users have the same access as members, which is the most inclusive, all right, which is great. So if you're in a Microsoft team, you get the same access. Guest users have limited access to the properties and memberships of a directory. Guest access is restricted to properties and memberships in their own directory. So again, you're quite limited there. Now, when it comes to admin, who can invite guests? Well, in Azure Active Directory, there is a special role called the guest inviter role. And the guest inviter role, you can assign it to any user and also various groups as well. So this is quite useful for things like team leaders and so on. Now, if you decide that it's going to be a free-for-all, so anyone can invite, then you can see here, anyone in the organization can invite guest users, including guests. Whoa, be careful with that one. That could cause a lot of problems, all right? Member users and users assigned to specific admin roles can also invite guests with member permissions. Again, that's quite a good one. Only users assigned to specific admin roles. So roles like the user admin role, the global admin, and also users with the guest inviter role, they can invite that. Now, of course, when we talk about owners, we're talking really about Microsoft 365. And when you create groups and teams, so here in teams and groups, I can go off and I can create a group and I can promote that group or team. And of course, we're talking about a Microsoft 365 group here to become a Microsoft team. And one of the things that you're expected to do is you're expected to set up an owner. So the owner is responsible for managing membership, managing the team and so on. That's what we mean by group membership. All right. So again, owners potentially by default also become a member of that guest inviter role. So again, you can see only users assigned with that specific role can invite. The most restrictive, of course, is that no one in the organization can invite guests. So you might just have a policy that no one invites guests. So if you're constantly trying to invite guests and constantly get error messages, it's because of this setting here. All right. Now, just a quick thing where you'll see the little blue links here. These take you through to docs.microsoft.com and the support documents. They're really good. All right. If you want to enable guests via self-service sign-up flows, this uses a tool called Power Automate. So Power Automate, of course, you can automate things. This is perfect for business to consumer. So if you've deployed, let's say, an app, a shopping app or something like that, you want users to be able to sign in with things like Facebook and so on, this is great for that. All right. Do you want to have any collaboration restrictions? So any invitations can be sent. So, basically allow anywhere. Or do you want to restrict or allow based on a per domain basis? So company.com, contoso.com. So contoso.com are not allowed to collaborate. Or you can either do it as an allow list or a block list here. Okay, so the allow invitations, of course, is the most open. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. Now, just a word of warning, there's so many places to get into trouble here. Again, collaboration settings is such an important area, so don't make that mistake. You can also get to it, by the way, in the users menu. And in the users menu, if you go into user settings and also scroll right down to the bottom here, and you can see external collaboration settings there. Okay, so again, the top tip there is be careful collaboration settings and also guest users. Get those settings right, otherwise it's a nightmare. So for the next topic, I want to talk about licensing in Microsoft 365. In years gone by, if you wanted to change or move a user or change their license in any way, it was potentially a nightmare and it involved a lot of migration. Now it's just a case of unticking one checkbox, reticking another, and the user's pretty much good to go. But choosing the correct license can be a potential nightmare. Now, if you go to the Microsoft website, so office.com, of course, you can go there. You can have a look at the different licenses and the different options. And again, key things to remember here, business plans, you can only have up to a maximum of 300 users. Enterprise plans and education, it can be far beyond that. But making sure that you get the right features can be troublesome and very, very expensive. I'd like to just mention a quick website produced by one of my friends, m365maps.com. Fantastic resource for finding out what exactly is included in your license. So definitely check it out. It can save you an awful lot of trouble. For my number 2, we have to discuss groups. Now, don't get me wrong, groups are absolutely fantastic, but it's amazing how many people don't understand them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here into the admin center. I'm going to go into teams and groups and just in here. So first of all, you need to understand the collaboration involved. So a security group is exactly as it says on the tin. It's purely for security. There is no collaboration involved. Mail enabled, it's a security group that contains a mailbox. A distribution list is nothing more than a contact group. But a Microsoft 365 group is absolutely a plethora of really useful tools. So if I scroll down here in Outlook, you can see that I've got a number of groups here. So if I go into Oslo purchasing, for example, not only do I get a shared mailbox, I get a shared document library, calendar, notebook, planner, and so on. As you know, we can also extend the capabilities of groups simply by going into the teams and groups, and we basically say, hey, I've got a group here called Aberdeen Marketing, and Aberdeen Marketing, I want it to be a Microsoft team. And you can extend the capabilities of the group to become a team, but it's an irreversible action. So know that before you click onto it. All right. Also know that if you delete a team in Teams, you cannot restore it in Teams. You need to restore it here in Microsoft 365 groups. All right. Very important. Make sure you get that right. Another thing is that you need to think about who you're going to allow to create groups. One of the problems with groups in 365 is that anyone and everyone can create them. So here in Outlook, a user can come in here and they can just create a Microsoft group here. More importantly than that, of course, they can scroll down and they can also discover groups. Okay, now that sounds pretty good, doesn't it? So if I just go into Aberdeen and do a search, you can see that I've got some groups that I've already joined. Now, I can join groups because these are public groups. So make sure another thing that you need to understand is the difference between private and public. So private groups you cannot join. They're only for members, and within the membership, you have to apply for membership to join the group, and it needs to be approved. Public groups, anyone can join them. So you can just discover them and join them. And remember, groups are teams and teams are groups. So very important that you understand that. So again, that problem of group mushrooming, how are you going to control that? So as an admin, you come into 365 and then go into the Azure Active Directory and into groups. There are a few things that you can do in order to restrict the creation and management of groups. First of all, from an admin perspective, what you can do is you can give a particular user a role, and you can either do that in the user account, or you can either do that in the user account, or you can go into roles and admin. And here in the administrators, these are all the different administrator roles. And one of the roles that you can have, of course, is a groups administrator. So if you want dedicated users to be able to create the groups, you can do that here. Another way to restrict groups is here in Azure Active Directory. One of the things that you can do on the General tab is that you can switch off group management. So owners can manage group membership. That's fine if you want team owners or group owners to do that. But if not, then it's just admins if you switch that off. Again, just Microsoft 365 groups, users can create them in the portals. This includes Outlook. Again, if you don't want that, you want it to be an admin function, switch it off here, otherwise it's a nightmare. You can also set expiry dates on groups. So in this example, I have set a 6-month expiry, and you can see it's set to notify me as the group owner. And it will also contact group owners as well, by the way. Now, you can select specific Microsoft 365 groups, and what's great about this is it's AI-driven, artificial intelligence. So as it approaches the 6 months, it determines how much traffic is going through the group. If there is nothing and it's empty, then it will delete the group. However, if it's still in use, it's got traffic going through it, it will reset the counter for another 6 months. This is a really useful feature. The other thing that you might want to consider as well is having a decent naming policy. So blocked words, for example, if you don't want any naughty words going in your groups, again, you can fix that. You can also have a group naming policy, the prefix and the suffix. Again, really useful. One final thing about groups, and what I think is one of the most important, is if you click into settings, in organizational settings, and if I scroll down here and locate Microsoft Groups, which is here, in here, let group owners add people outside of your organization. So you remember earlier I did guest access. So again, if you don't want that, then this would be an admin only function. All right. If you do want your users to invite guests, again, you can click that checkbox. And also guest members access group content. Again, you need to switch these features on here, otherwise you will have problems. So number one on my list of technical issues, of course, is DNS. Now, this is so important that you get this right at the beginning, and you can do this in a number of places. Normally, you would do this as part of your setup, and this can either be a guided setup or you can do this manually. When you sign up for Microsoft 365, if I go into settings and in domains here, you can see that by default, Microsoft will give you a tenant.onmicrosoft.com domain. Now, it's highly unlikely that you'll probably want to use this for your real live business. And if you do, then it doesn't really mean anything. This tenant, by the way, is just a container in Azure Active Directory. So imagine Windows Explorer and subfolders off that. Each of those folders would represent a unique organization. So you can purchase a domain either here in Microsoft 365, or you can go into Azure Active Directory, and if you scroll down here, you can see that we have got custom domain names, and it's exactly the same. Which one would you use? To be honest, it's exactly the same. So for consistency, I'll do it in Microsoft 365. So if you've got a couple of options, do you want to add a domain or do you want to buy a domain? Now, if you want to buy a domain, you can upgrade a trial plan. So for this, it doesn't work with a trial plan. So this will only work with a purchase plan. All right, that's the first thing. Now, if you decide to go ahead and buy and add a domain that you own yourself, so if you've already purchased a domain name, so for example, in this case, I'm going to type in type this incorrect, Bob's Boats. Okay, so I'm going to type in bobsboats.com. So if I own this domain name, I'm going to say, yes, I would like to use this. Now, you have now got some options, and those options are, well, first of all, you have to prove that you own that domain name. So you can either prove it by adding a text record to your organization's DNS server, okay? If you can't add the text record, you can add an MX record or mail exchanger. If you haven't got access to a DNS server, then again, this will work with a hosting service. So if you've got a website that's hosted with a provider like GoDaddy or somebody like that, again, you can use that. Alternatively, you could actually add a text file to the website, but either way, it's going to give you the same information. So if I just click on continue here, essentially the next thing is we'll now get this MS equals MS and this unique number. It's really important that you take a note of this and don't just click by it. This is your unique identity, all right? And if you lose it or there's a problem, it can cause real problems. So now all you do is you go into DNS and you create a text record, a TXT, that represents this. And once you've added that record in, you then click verify. Now, once you've done that and it's verified, it will then ask you, hey, now do you want to connect the domain to other services? And it will ask you for things like Exchange if you're running Skype for Business or Teams. Again, things like mail exchanger records for Exchange, a CNAME or alias record, and this auto configures Outlook, of course. And then you've also got spam filtering, SPF records. Now, the nice thing about DNS is when you're setting this up, it will say to you, it will say, hey, these are the records that I need. These are the records that I'm expecting, but this is what you're supplying. All right. These are the records that you're giving me. So again, if you're copying and pasting, watch out for human error. Copy and paste correctly. Hopefully at the end of the process, all the records will be verified and you're good to go. So there you have it. That's my top 5 troubleshooting tips for Microsoft 365 admins. Now, I would love to know if you could add to that list. So pop down below with your comments, questions, and feedback, and maybe let me know what your top 5 would be. I'd be fascinated to know. Hey, I just want to say once again, thanks so much for helping me reach 7,000 subscribers. I really appreciate it. I'm really aiming to build a great community here around Microsoft 365 and of course Microsoft Azure. Now, if you've got questions, comments, I want to know about them. If you're not a subscriber, go ahead, hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, and help me grow the channel. I really do appreciate it. And as always, if you've enjoyed the video, give me a big thumbs up. I really do appreciate it, and it makes a big difference. All right, so that's it for this week. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you soon. And you stay safe. See you next time. Hey, thanks so much for dropping by today. Here's a couple of videos that you may enjoy, and while you're here, go ahead, click on the subscribe button and you won't miss out.